Hi, it's Piotr from Optima here. I'm voice AI consultant, strategy advisor, and embedded technical partner. And today's topic is very exciting for me because we're going to talk about costs in voice AI and how did it look like in my case of 15 million calls for my client. A lot of the costs are quite repetitive across different voice AI stacks. So such cost is telephony, speech to text, text to speech, LLM, and provider fee per minute. You could have also self-hosting. In such case, then you just pay for the infra. And there's also a few more costs, such as provider costs, provider contracts for HIPAA or GDPR, observability, logging, development, on-premise deployments, and if you're using speech-to-speech, then it's also a different cup of tea, and the cost is typically higher there. So for our use case, we'll make assumed values for all the first 5 ones. For the other ones, I can give you a little bit of guides. How much is that? For provider contracts, this is from $500 to $3,000 typically at retail, 500 at Pipecut or LiveKit. For observability, you can assume that will be around 20 to 25% of your cost, but it could be higher or it could be a little bit lower. Typically, not less than 20%. Obviously, cost of development depends on where you do the development, who you are hiring, etc. On-premise deployments, this can get really costly. Really depends on who you are trying to contract with. For instance, 11 Labs takes 15K per month, I believe, for on-premise deployments, which is quite a lot. So let's get into actual numbers. So for telephony, we can assume the cost per minute. For speech to text, we can assume the length of the conversation. For text to speech, we assume 70 words per minute or 80 words per minute and calculate the cost according to that because it's typically per character, and we assume we have certain length of character of a word. For LLM, we know that we know upfront the amount of input tokens that we have, and we assume amount of turns throughout 1 minute, let's say, and then we know the average duration of our calls, and then we can assume the cost that way. So I made a small simplification into this table so that you can see the costs more easily, and it accumulates to around 5 cents per minute. If you add provider fee on top of that, then you get different values, obviously, depending on the provider. If it is VAPI, 5 cents, then you get 10 cents per minute. So for whole month, that will be $960, right? So still a lot cheaper than human labor in many different places in the world. So there is one thing that's missing here. I also made this pie chart, let's call it, sort of, that visualizes the costs more or less, obviously. So this is a lot of the time how it is visualized. Oh, I forgot the telephony, but typically it's like the assumption is like that, right? Telephony. Let's make it like that. Okay. So we still missed one information. I'll give you 3 seconds to think about what we are lacking here, and I'm gonna give you an answer right after that. So, okay, I assume you are back. So what we're missing is deleting everything. You did not expect that, did you? And why is that? I'm glad you asked. Let's go back to this point. So we have cost of telephony, and we said, let's assume values, let's assume 1 minute and 10 seconds, right? If I restore the assumption here. The problem is, oh, actually, sorry, let's assume 0.0140 per minute, and 1 minute, 10 seconds, yeah. So the problem with this is not correct at all. So this is assumed cost per minute, but in fact, Twilio bills you in a way that they round up to a full minute. So even if you have 1 second of a conversation, then you get billed by a full minute. This is first thing. Second, LLM input. Right now, we assume that everything is not cached, which is not correct. Some of it would be cached. But the question is, how much is getting cached and how much isn't getting cached? Then we have variability from the text to speech. So we can have conversations in which we talk a lot, and we could have conversations in which our text to speech has very little to say, actually, right? So assuming value in here is simply wrong. You just cannot do it. You cannot assume costs because even if you perfectly, by some magnificent accident, correctly assume all of the values, then it still doesn't give you an answer where to cut costs because you don't understand how particular components correspond to your pipeline properly. So this is very useful. Piotr, thank you for 5 minutes or however long we're here of yapping without any answers. So how should you do it and how does it actually look like? This is actually going to land in a second video. And this is because there are quite a lot of things you need to know about. It's quite simple actually, but at the same time, I think it's important to focus only on the proper preparation of the data and proper visualization of the data so that you understand what to put into which buckets. To give you a little bit more context into why that is so important, your cost per minute doesn't matter that much at all, actually. So one of the very first things my client asked me was to cut costs in our pipeline. And he said, I believe we could reduce some of the fat on the tokens. We could make our LLM, we could make the amount of tokens on our LLM a little bit smaller. I listened to the advice. I took a look at the data and I reduced the cost by 35% while increasing amount of tokens by 30%. And it doesn't make any sense. Why would I do it? So it turns out that we are hitting voicemail around 90% of the time and focusing on making the discovery of the voicemail as quick as possible and as accurate as possible was the biggest cost saving because we are getting billed per minute on the provider. We are getting billed per minute on a few other things, and therefore cutting costs here was absolutely crucial. This was first thing, absolutely non-intuitive at all, but intuitive with what I'll provide in another video. Then another thing, I realized that we had a very poor quality on some of the aspects of our calls, and I could analyze that from the data that we have had. And improving performance on these parts of the conversation actually gave us a lot more money in the output. We produced much higher quality software essentially. And applying the changes to make the performance better saved us costs. Even though the cost per minute was higher, the actual cost lowered a lot. So I'm talking about roughly 60% less time spent on a few mandatory parts of the conversation, which was incredible cost saving. So what we're gonna do in the next video is I'm gonna show you how to analyze your data properly, how to think about cutting costs, and how to calculate costs in a correct way, not in a random way. Thanks to that, you'll be able to, first of all, understand what matters, because cost per minute itself, it's useless. Throw it into the bin. Don't do it that way. Do not calculate it that way. It is terrible. First thing. Second, you'll understand where to focus on cost savings and where not to focus on cost savings. And third and foremost, you'll be able to make decisions on your own without making assumptions. In my previous videos, my most costly mistakes, the fifth mistake was making assumptions, and trust me, it is terrible. A lot of the advice I see online is wrong. It's just plain wrong, and it's difficult to know that you're making something wrong if you don't have the right tools to analyze your situation. So stay tuned for the next video. I also want to mention that I have my own website, coloptima.com. I have a really solid blog on which I post stories from various sections of the voice AI world. I've had a chat with Alfir Samson, amazing conversation, as well as Nicholas Leonard from VoiceRun. You can see the TLDRs. They will give you a lot of really cool information you can use in your deployments. You can also book a free consultation if you need help with cutting costs, making the quality of your voice AI pipeline higher. And one last thing, I would really appreciate you giving a thumbs up, subscribe, and hitting a notification bell. This allows me to focus on content more. It helps me to create higher quality content as well. And I already received quite a lot of messages from people saying that they do appreciate these videos popping up. And I'm not gonna lie, it gives me a lot of positive energy, and it motivates me even more to focus on it and create something that you will find valuable. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.